Hey there. So, here's my take on the whole Trump campaign situation. While everyone has their own perspective, I believe it's safe to say that Trump's campaign trail is going to have to adapt to these recent events. They will likely still push their current narrative, but given the recent incident, there's a possibility of some changes, or maybe increased security measures at live events. It's hard to predict the exact course of action, given the unique circumstances. His base would likely rally around him even more, but he might go off the rails a bit and try to pin issues on the radical left. We'd likely see fewer big rallies and more emphasis on attacking opponents, which might not work well for him overall. On the other side, Biden might just continue to keep cool and denounce violence, which could work in his favor. However, it's important to note that many people are drawn to the appearance of strength, which Trump often exudes, so that could sway voters too. It's a complex situation, but I reckon it's going to be a close call, with Trump's handling playing a key role. But what if the shooter had silenced Donald Trump? What could have happened? Let's explore every scenario. One way to analyze it is simple. The impact would be pretty significant in terms of politics. There would likely be a big investigation, potential upheaval in the political landscape, and it would be a massive blow to his supporters. But in a more personal, everyday sense, not much might change. We'd all probably still go to work on Monday, deal with our usual tasks, basically go on with our lives. Life would go on for most people. We just might be discussing different news stories. If Trump had gotten killed by a shooter, there would likely be major shifts in the political landscape. Most probably, we would see an open Republican convention, possibly followed by a Democratic one too, depending on Biden's poll status at the time. Despite some opinions that this could make the primaries pointless, others argued that the primaries already felt pointless anyway. Some fears around Trump were regarding a potential dictatorship, while fears around Biden were more about his age and health conditions, similar to the Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg situation, where she didn't step down despite numerous health issues. However, if Biden were to die in office, his party would still maintain control. On the other hand, Ginsburg's death led to a change in the party for her seat. It's a contentious discussion with diverse opinions stemming from political biases and individual perspectives on the state of American politics. If Trump had been killed by the shooter, it would have resulted in a power struggle within the Republican Party to quickly identify a candidate to replace him. It would likely not have been a seamless process, given the current divisions within the party. There'd be debates over whether Nikki Haley, a key challenger during the primaries, a MAGA candidate, or another individual should take over. As for a replacement within the Democratic Party, the consensus seems to be that Kamala Harris is the most viable candidate, given her involvement in Biden's campaign and her access to campaign funds. Others, however, have speculated on replacements such as Whitmer, Newsom, or Shapiro. The shooter's political affiliation stirred up a lot of discussion. It turns out he was a registered Republican, leading some to suspect that he might have registered as such to influence the primaries. The mention of Project 2025 sparked discussions about deep state conspiracy theories and the role of the Heritage Foundation. It's speculated that they might already have a plan to replace Trump. Overall, both Democrats and Republicans would face significant challenges and divisions if they were to lose their current candidates. Public opinion also shows the polarizing effect of these figures. If Trump had been killed by the shooter, it would have likely triggered a complex and volatile response within the GOP. Speculating, of course, but the party might have seen a power struggle ensue, potentially among notable figures with high influence within the party. It would land upon an individual that embodies Trump's ideologies to carry on his legacy. Don Jr. or even Tucker Carlson were speculated. Others proposed J.D. Vance as a possible candidate, while some believe the party may have leaned towards Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, who have been significant figures in recent Republican politics. Considering the party's recent track record for pushing surprise candidates, they could have also gone with a wild card or someone less commonly discussed. However, it's also likely there would be significant divisions within the party, making it difficult to select a single nominee. Moreover, this hypothetical situation could have resulted in potential impacts beyond politics, such as social unrest among supporters and a definite shift in the political landscape of the country. But yeah, the general consensus seems to be that if Trump had been killed, the Republican Party would have likely put forth another candidate, possibly someone like Nikki Haley. This could have significantly shifted the dynamics of the election, as Haley might have appealed to moderate and non-Trump Republicans, potentially leading to a win for the Republican Party. Nonetheless, Trump's strong personality cult could have also caused divisiveness within the party and among the loyalists. Some people also suggest a potential schism within the party, which could have further complicated the situation. However, all these speculations have been varied, showcasing potential different scenarios that could have unfolded. There would have likely been major chaos, with the Republican Party quickly quickly needing to find a replacement candidate. This could have sparked infighting, as there would undoubtedly be groups who would want to continue Trump's legacy and others who would want to move on. A new candidate could potentially rally the MAGA voters through sympathy and might also attract some independents and Democrats who were only voting for Biden due to their dislike for Trump. However, this would also potentially lead to a rise in political tension, possibly even violent outbursts due to fervent Trump supporters viewing him as a martyr. There'd be no doubt a funeral, most probably a closed casket. The technicalities are debatable since today's morticians could probably cake over the damage so well that you'd think he just took a long nap. Not saying Trump's ego wouldn't fight for an open casket, but getting shot in the head or not, he'd still require touch-ups. That's when the conspiracy theorists would have their field day. The theories would range from Trump stashing himself away in a Putin safe house, some deep fake video nonsense, or even Obama pulling the strings behind a covert hit. Entertainment value aside, the event could finally get Trump his much-awaited presidential library funded. Then there's a possibility they'd bury him at one of his golf courses. Not saying he wouldn't want that, but there'd be jokes about him doing it for a tax break. If that bullet had been just a few inches off, we would have seen a really messy scene, probably even a shocking video. Given the slight shifts Trump made before the incident, a direct hit could have been a grisly sight. I mean, it's crazy how the bullet only hit his ear, such a small target. The shooting reminds some people of scenes from an old action movie. I bet the footage would have been promptly censored, just like some other infamous TV moments. And all of this was so close to happening, just because the shooter's aim was slightly off, which could have been due to various factors like weather conditions. But then again, some think it wasn't a real bullet, but shrapnel from the projector that hit him. There's also a theory suggesting it was staged, which seems odd to me considering there were real casualties. From what I can tell, the attacker didn't even use a rifle scope. If he had, things could have turned out much worse. Just goes to show how a slight margin can make a world of difference. No, seriously, the world would have been drastically different if Trump was taken out. There probably would have been people celebrating the event with themed parties and whatnot. If something like that had taken place, the political scene would have been in turmoil. The Republicans would have faced a challenging task to decide on a new presidential candidate. There's a chance that Nikki Haley might have had a shot at the candidacy, considering her political standing, but others may have advocated for candidates like Ron DeSantis due to his popularity. Truthfully, party allegiance these days seems so strong that it might not even make a big difference who the candidate is. It's likely party supporters would vote for their party's nominee no matter who it is. If Trump had been killed by the shooter, I believe this could have led to him becoming a martyr for the MAGA cause, potentially creating a power vacuum in the Republican Party. This could have allowed either a more moderate Republican or an even more extreme nationalist to step into his shoes. Unfortunately, there's also the strong possibility of retaliation violence, considering Trump's widespread and avid support base. As for who the retaliation would be against, there are always individuals looking for an excuse to commit violence, even when the excuse lacks factual or logical basis. Dems could be targeted, with claims made about Biden or other high-profile Democrats being behind the shooting. Despite this shooting being carried out by someone affiliated with the same party, the need for an enemy or scapegoat could result in irrational blame placed elsewhere. This incident could potentially lead to further altercations, potentially resulting in a severe backlash against Democrats, irrespective of the shooter's actual political alignment. It's conceivable that there would have been a mix of outrage, protests, and possibly even some chaotic events taking place. Certain populations might feel particularly affected and disturbed. In the view of some people, Trump's death might have led to the emergence of additional extremist groups who exploit situations like these. Conversely, there would likely be a segment of the population that would openly celebrate his death. This celebration could potentially incite counter-protests and further violence. Unfortunately, the tense climate might even lead to a rise in right-wing extremism and instances of revenge violence. At the end of the day, however, many folks believe the best way to deal with political disagreements is through political and civilized means and not violence. There would likely be endless conspiracy theories like Trump was killed by the CIA lizardmen because he found out the Earth is egg-shaped. It honestly sounds like a movie plot. Deep state theories would probably also flare up, with people questioning the efficiency of such an entity if it supposedly had the power to kill someone and make it look like an accident. Then there's the idea that it could have been staged for political gain or to stir up controversy. This theory implies that somebody would willingly let people die to achieve a certain outcome, which sounds insane but is evidently a discussion in some circles. A lot hinges on what the investigation into the shooter and their motives would reveal. Yet, some folks might never agree with the findings. It's gotten to the point where facts don't seem to hold as much weight anymore. There's definitely going to be a lot of conspiracy theories, with a legion of them possibly following the narrative of a deep state revenge mission. Unfortunately, such an event may instigate chaos with hardcore Trump supporters possibly taking to the streets. While there's sympathy on the surface from the GOP, some may secretly feel relief. Some might draw parallels to JFK's assassination and speculate about the existence of a second shooter. Some might argue that such an event was intentionally orchestrated to make Trump look like a hero or fall victim to a brazen attack on live TV, fueling more divisive political narratives. Lastly, there may be an ironic twist with Trump enthusiasts rethinking their stance on gun rights if a tragedy spun out of a citizen's right to bear arms. It's a complex, multifaceted situation with loads of potential for speculation and rumor-mongering. I guess there'd be a whole lot of drama indeed. Melania might be free and, surprisingly enough, start dating someone like Pete Davidson. Hey, what an unexpected reality show that'd make. And Eric, call Pete dad? Sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit. But seriously, it's equally plausible Melania could end up with another rich guy or even Putin. Realistically, though, it would be a huge shock for the nation, and it could potentially escalate political tensions. As much as we enjoy speculating, it's a sensitive scenario. There would be a push to replace Biden, given that his main appeal is seen as being a counter to Trump. Honestly, Biden's still in the game, mainly because he's seen as the guy who can take on Trump. Heck, he's the only candidate to have actually beaten Trump so far. But when you think about it, it's a sorry state of affairs that we're in this position in the first place. Let's be real, the situation with Bernie and Hillary wasn't ideal either. By autumn, we could see familiar faces returning to the race, like Bernie. And as for Biden, he'd probably still be portrayed as the friendly grandpa, riding bikes and eating ice cream despite his age. Vestiges of the Trump era would likely still be felt, though, as potential GOP candidates might use similar controversial rhetoric to establish themselves. Some hardcore supporters might have even taken it as a call to arms, threatening the safety of those seen as enemies. However, I don't think we'd spiral into a full-blown civil war. Sure, the politics are extreme right now, but most people have everyday lives and jobs to uphold. Picking up a gun and going to war isn't a decision taken lightly, yet there's a portion of supporters who are openly ready for battle, fueled by religious beliefs and political extremism. It's all unnerving, but the idea of a civil war seems too far. People on both political sides would likely prioritize their family's safety. We could see increased caution, especially from high-ranking officials. Similarly, we could see revenge bids escalating violence on both sides. Yet, most of these are worst-case scenarios, and in reality, not everyone would be ready to jump into battle at the drop of a hat. The notion feels like something out of a movie. With all that said, it still paints a grim picture, underlining how polarized we've become. That's my 2 cents. It's probable the Republicans would have used that as a rallying cry, giving them a solid chance of winning the election. Potential civil unrest and attacks on Democrats would likely follow, possibly a larger-scale incident, similar to January 6th. Biden's position in his own party might have been shaky. They mainly supported him to oppose Trump, and without Trump, Kamala or some other Democrat candidate might seem more appealing. But against a Republican candidate with the martyr angle, tough competition. Peaceful elections might even be a stretch. The situation would probably be pretty messy and tense, to be honest. If Trump had been killed by a shooter, he probably wouldn't have become president. After all, a case could have been made in court to argue that dead people can't be elected. Draws a funny parallel to how even animals have held office, doesn't it? There'd probably be some wild debates about this. Does the Constitution actually say you have to be alive to run? Seems like a gray area. Given his popularity, he probably would have received millions of votes even posthumously. But let's be real, despite the conspiracies and theories, it might have just turned into a bizarre situation, something straight out of Weekend at Bernie's. So, in conclusion, it's clear that Trump's campaign will need to navigate these tumultuous times with adaptability and perhaps heightened security. While his core supporters are likely to remain loyal, the campaign might see fewer large rallies and more targeted attacks on opponents. This situation could potentially benefit Biden if he continues to present a calm and non-violent stance. I hope you liked this more news-related video. Don't hesitate to subscribe for more.